Rusty Miller might have had red hair, braces, and freckles, but at 11 years old, he was the most popular Star Wars fan in the world. Let's talk about Rusty Miller. Sadly, I don't have the book. I had it at one time. I think it's at my parents' house. I used to keep it in my Star Wars Empire Strikes Back lunchbox. That way I could sneak it to school. But I just wanted to talk about this book because it's one of the first... Well, let's start all over because I'm jumping ahead here. Star Wars, it was called The Jedi Master Quiz, and Rusty Miller was 11 years old when he came up with this book of trivia questions. Now again, this is for you millennials and young kids out there. This was for the internet. Come up with Star Wars trivia questions. You would go to school, your friends might have 4, your other friend might have 5 or 6, but overall, they were the same questions. What is the car called that Luke drives in Star Wars? What is Ben Kenobi's other name? And stuff. It was very common stuff. Even when you did find something that had trivia questions in it, it was very common stuff. But Rusty Miller, he broke the mold when it came to Star Wars trivia. This book, all about Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back trivia, was the book to have. After Empire Strikes Back, there wasn't much Star Wars out there new. I mean, we didn't have a vast EU. We had some pop-up books and some Wookiee books maybe before that, and Lando books. But if you wanted Star Wars trivia to help you learn your knowledge, it wasn't just questions to test yourself. It was to make you look like a genius on the playground too. Oh, so you got a touchdown at the latest football game. But did you know that the bald-headed man that stands behind Lando Calrissian in The Empire Strikes Back is named Lobot? Bet you didn't know that. I bet no football coach told you that one, did they, Jerry? So you can see you could really brag if you had this book. The best thing, you could learn the answers, learn the questions, go to school the next day, have them in your head, and make yourself look like a nerd genius. But as you can guess, most of the people really didn't care or was impressed that you knew what AT-AT stood for. But for a few of us, we did. Now, I love this book. I remember laying in bed, reading the questions on it. Like I said, sneaking it into my Empire Strikes Back lunchbox, taking it to school. Love this book here. So who is Rusty Miller? I remember he was on an episode of Real People or That's Incredible. And I tried to find a clip of that, but it's not on the internet. It's lost. Someone, please find the Rusty Miller. It was either on That's Incredible or Real People. One of the two shows that came on back to back. But I remember, because I think that's how I found out about the book. But I remember watching that. But who is Rusty Miller? According to the book inside. Now, I didn't say this. This isn't me making it up. According to the book information, he has red hair, freckles, and braces. And he's an all-American kid. Rusty takes guitar lessons, sings in the school choir, and is an A student enrolled in a gifted student program. He lives in Florida with his parents, and his best friend was his dog Frodo. And this was Rusty's first book. I remember picking this book up at the bookstore at the mall. I think it was B. Dalton. I could be wrong. Could have been Walden Books. Could have been just... If I'm wrong, if it wasn't B. Dalton, let me know in the comments. Hey, Junkman, I saw you there when you were 11 buying this book. But anyway, on the back of it, it has some questions. And I was like, I've got to know the answers to these. I've got to know these questions and answers. It said, test yourself, test a friend, test a Wookiee. And I remember reading that and laughing. I thought that was the greatest thing I ever heard in my life. I remember going to school and telling kids, you know, I would have them say, hey, I got a test for you, man. Even a Wookiee can't pass this test. And most of them will say, what the hell is a bookie? And I was like, no, not a bookie, a Wookiee. But it has some questions on the back before I bought the book I got to read. Who was Red 6 in the Battle of the Death Star? What was 3PO's first job? How many horns does a Tauntaun have? Where did Han and Luke first meet? Some simple questions, some hard questions. I was getting stumped just on the back of the book cover. I had to find out who this red-headed freckle freak was and how did he know more than Star Wars than even I did. I couldn't believe it. Someone around my age, now I knew there were older people probably knew more about Star Wars than I did, but around my age, he was 11 at the time, so I was right around that same time. How could this kid try to outdo me in Star Wars? He knew, he did. I had to give him my Wampa hat because he knew more about Star Wars than I did for sure. Or did he? Although Rusty Miller did know a lot about Star Wars, it seems that some of the questions in the book were added by the Lucasfilm editors. And they drew on sources for not just the movies, the Star Wars sketchbook, the Star Wars album, the Wookiee storybook, Once Upon a Galaxy, a journal of the making of The Empire Strikes Back, and the fan club newsletter, Bantha Tracks. So although he did know a lot about Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back, seems he did get a little bit of help. And Lucasfilms did go through the book to make sure his answers were right. And it seems there was another thing. Rusty Miller wasn't even his name. His actual name is Matt Miller. Why he went by the name Rusty Miller on the cover, I really don't know. It's a mystery for the ages. But why would this Rusty Miller even write such a book? Was it to make people like me feel bad that I wasn't a Star Wars genius like I thought I was? Or was it to help people like me become even more knowledgeable about Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back? Well, Rusty Miller said, in the summer of 1981, out of boredom, he began to write trivia questions about A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. The number of questions mushroomed, and he started to think to himself, hey, this could be something. My mom and I drafted a letter to Del Rey Books. Several weeks later, they requested a copy of the manuscript. And the rest is trivia Star Wars history. How many questions was in this book? 425 questions. We're not talking about some pamphlet of 10, 20 questions. 425 questions that was hard as hell to answer. It wasn't really stuff. It wasn't stuff, like who is 3PO's little astro droid friend. I mean, there were some easy ones, don't get me wrong, but there were some hard ones that you had to know the novel. And we're talking about a guy that wrote these questions back in 1981, when the book was released in 82, that couldn't just pop in a videotape, watch the movie over and over, and write down questions. No, he had to go to the movies and see it. He had to read the novel. He had to get source material. He had to do a lot of work. He might have been an 11-year-old redheaded kid with braces, but no, he did his work. There was no skipping it here, although I did find out years later that Lucasfilm did help with some of the questions. Well, anyway, the book was released in October 12th, 1982. It became a day long remembered by Star Wars fans. I don't know any Star Wars fan that didn't have this book, or at least borrowed copies of this book from somebody and read all the questions, or sitting around with your friends and reading questions after questions. And I didn't have many friends that wanted me to ask them many questions. I would try to slip one here and there. I would remember a couple take it to school, like I said, try to, waiting on the school bus. Hey, Boyd, how many horns does a tauntaun have? And, he'd just ignore me for a while, and then he'll say, 4, just to shut me up. But man, I love this book, and to me, it is part of Star Wars history. It's as important in my Star Wars history as my Star Wars toys, my Star Wars lunchbox, my Star Wars belt buckle, going to see the movies. My history and love for Star Wars goes back to Rusty Miller's book. It helped me inform myself more about Star Wars, helped me show that I wasn't just the only nerd into this stuff, and it really brightened my day. It made my life better reading this book. There was actually 2 covers released. One with a black cover with a retail price of $2.50. The other was a blue cover, probably the most popular, at least this is the one I have, with a retail price of $1.95. And both had the same cover with art by Ralph McQuarrie. But out of those 425 trivia questions, at least 2 of them are wrong. Now, some of them might be wrong because the canon changed throughout the years, maybe, but I'm talking about release back then. 2 of them was wrong, and one of them, even I picked up back as a kid. That question was, what creature did Ben fend off from Luke Skywalker in the cantina? I think we all know is Walrus Man, or now later Pon the Bubba, or something like that. It's Walrus Man, but according to the book's answers, it was Snaggletooth. I was appalled. This was wrong. How many other questions could have been wrong? Have I been living a lie all of 1982? Could all of 1982 been a lie? All these trivia questions I had in my head, all these facts, all this bragging that I had been doing in the playground at school, maybe I was just looking like a dumbass. Could they be more wrong? Well, it seems Lucasfilm went through it. And although they didn't catch this one, there was one other one they didn't catch, which isn't bad. Out of 425 questions, to have 2 that were wrong, hey, Rusty, hats off to you. The other question was, how many engines does Princess Leia's blockade runner have? The answer, according to the book, is 9, but it was 12. I didn't even know that as a kid, so you got that one over on me, Rust. But I do remember the snaggletooth question because it bugged me. It made me question the whole book. But overall, every time I would check one to see if you were right, couldn't find you. You got it, except for the snaggletooth and I guess the engine trivia question. Rusty did come to the defense of this years later when some website tracked him down, and he said that he never got any feedback from Lucasfilm other than they researched his questions and answers, and they didn't catch these either. If you ask me, it's probably because it was 425 questions, and after probably about question 275, whoever was checking the book probably said, yeah, whatever, here, release it. That's probably what happened. Now, whatever happened to Rusty Miller? I mean, grown up. He's older now, and I've seen him do some interviews on some of the Star Wars fan sites and some of the podcasts. Maybe I need to track him down and have him on the live show. What do you guys think? Would you like to see Rusty Miller on the show? Maybe we can ask him some of these questions again, see how good his knowledge, see if it's still held up. Rusty Miller or Miller... Rusty Miller or Matt Miller, if you're still out there, maybe you want to contact me. We can test your truth. We'll just do 10. We won't do all 425. We'll see how you hold up today with your own questions. Oh, might be a lot of fun, but I know this video wasn't really detailed or shocking or anything, but I figured I've talked about the comics, I've talked about the lunchboxes, I talked about the toys, and I said I've got to talk about this book because I'm sure not just like me, you Star Wars fans that grew up in 1982, this was part of your Star Wars childhood just as much as the books and the comics and the toys. Oh, I love this book to death. I'm going to head over to my parents later and see if I can still find it because I used to have this book, and like I said, it was great. Well, that's a look at the Jedi Master Quiz book by Rusty Miller. Let me know in the comments below. Did you have this book? Did you read this book? Did you go to school, try to trick your friends into thinking you came up with all these questions and you're so knowledgeable? Or did you keep your Star Wars knowledge skills to yourself? I don't know about you, but the school I went to, most of the kids would come back after the weekend, especially the boys, and talk about the latest Little League game they played in. And all I can think of is, your parents made you take a sports activity on the weekend? It's bad enough to make us come to school. How did you have time to play with your Star Wars figures? Poor kids having to play softball and baseball or Little League T-ball, whatever you fucking call it. Anyway, that's a look at the Rusty Miller book. Let me know in the comments below if you had this book, what you thought of it, and if you didn't have it, check it out. If you can find it, check it out. It's a good book. That's it. Until the next video, we'll talk. Subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk again.
Hey, Jumpman channel popping though.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.